Hi viewers, welcome back. My name is Adeola Fayehun, and once again this is our very last Saturday live show. And of course in the last 1 year we've covered a lot of stories, not just from Nigeria but different African countries on SaharaTV. Now we're doing like a recap of so many stories that we've covered, like the major ones, and to discuss this with me in the house today is the one and only publisher of Black Star News. I'm talking about Mr. Milton Allimadi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I feel honored to be on your show.
It's always a pleasure having you.
Thank
and
you.
We're so happy that you are from Uganda because you bring another perspective.
Thank you.
Let's talk about, first of all, President Obama's visit to Kenya and Ethiopia this year. Exactly what do you think that means, though?
Well, I mean, it's really symbolic because a lot of the work that needs to be done by Africans in Africa and Africans in diaspora, like Sahara reporters. Yeah, I think Africans outside play a very important role, and that's where we should maintain the focus. So the visit itself is symbolic. But what I like is that when he was in Addis Ababa addressing the African Union, he was very blunt, and he said what many Africans like to hear, that you can't say you're the only person that can run an African country. We need to open the way and allow African youth to take leadership. So that to me was perhaps the most important thing that he said during that visit. And he was very blunt about it. He says, if an African leader says he is the only person that can hold the country together, it means he's not done a good job at all.
It's so true, though.
Absolutely.
We have so many instances of African leaders not wanting to leave. And speaking of African leaders not wanting to leave, you're aware of what has been happening in Burundi. We've been covering that story as well. What's your take on Burundi? Well,
it's the same thing. Here's what President Nkurunziza is saying. He said when he signed the agreement, the peace agreement, and then he was elected president by the parliament. So he ran for one term, and then he was elected for a second term. Now, his argument is that the Constitution said the president should be elected by popular election, a maximum of 2 terms. So he's saying don't count the first term. But really? Africans, people in Burundi, people on the continent are not interested in these semantics now. People want to see a regular transfer of leadership.
Can you just dismiss a term? Can you do that? Can you just say, oh, don't count this term? I was just rehearsing for the play.
Absolutely. And that argument is, I think, is very weak, even though he may have support from his party and people that support his party, because you know Burundi also has the whole Hutu and ethnic divide. So maybe many Hutus might support him, thinking that, oh, this might bring back the old type of conflict we used to have, Hutu versus Tutsi. But that's still not enough. It's not sufficient. He should not abuse the generosity of his citizens.
Speaking of abuse, more than 100 people have been killed.
Absolutely.
In the post-election violence. A lot of people died before the election, and then after the election, at least 100 civilians have been killed. And him saying that he's the only one that can do the job, and I feel like it's ridiculous to expect people to
It is, and it's very hard to sell that argument in African countries. Now, you remember last year when Blaise Compaoré in Burkina Faso tried to change the constitution. People came out, they burned down the parliament, and they drove him out of power. And now they're going to hold elections this year. And I think we're going to see revolution. Absolutely. And because look, out of the billion or so population on the continent, 200 million of them are aged between 16 to 24.
Youth.
And then let's talk about unemployment. South Africa, 50% of the youth unemployed. In Uganda, that age range, 80%.
Wow.
It's preposterous. They need to be allowed to become the leaders. They need to be allowed to create the jobs that they need. And a very interesting survey by the World Bank of the young people that join guerrilla armies or insurgencies, 60% said they joined because of, guess what? Unemployment. They want jobs.
And, you know, speaking of older men holding on to power, you are from Uganda. What is going on? Mr. Museveni has been in power now for how many years?
General Museveni. As of January, it would be 30 years come this January. And actually, you know, I think 30 years. It's probably as old as you've been alive. It's preposterous. And the majority of Ugandans are young people, so many of them have not known any other president except this dictator.
And he wants to run again.
He wants to run again. Election, I think, are scheduled for March. The new thing is that the opposition parties have now signed onto some sort of a compact. They say, number one, we will not run unless there are electoral reforms, because he appoints the election commissioners.
Wow.
So obviously...
That's where the rigging starts.
That's where the rigging starts, because they're not going to announce a result which does not have him as the winner, number one. Number two, they've decided to come together and say they will support one joint candidate. If that happens,
that's good for them.
And if there is election reform, then this could be goodbye for him. But they've been saying this for the past election, that he's successfully been able to rig. So the jury is still out.
Do you think he would step down? Do you think that anything will make Mr. Museveni, General Museveni, change his mind?
I think if it's clear, and if it is, I think, free and open elections, I think he would lose. And I think it's likely that it will be very hard for him to retain hold in power. And how do I say this? Because his key lieutenants have now abandoned him. His former prime minister, whom he fired last year, Amama Mbabazi. Why did he fire him? Because he suggested that he may want to run as well. So he was fired, and now he's running against him, in addition to the traditional opposition.
So he's trying to quiet the opposition.
It's going to be very tough, because they also have support within the army. So
and you know, speaking of support, it's a different story when you look at what's happening in Rwanda. At least in Uganda, the opposition is gearing up for this coming election. Why is it that in Rwanda, the president announced, Paul Kagame, that he's going to run third time, and it looks like there is no protest, what is happening? Right,
because that is a completely absolute police state. He controls the parliament, he controls the army, he controls the security services.
Wow.
And he's not shy about using it. The domestic repression, killing opposition leaders.
Is there freedom of press?
None at all. In fact, he's brazenly killed reporters that were even had ran out of the country in Uganda and in Kenya. He had them killed. And not only that, he tried to assassinate reportedly tried to assassinate the former head of his own army, who is in exile in South Africa, General Nyamwasa. There have been 5 attempts to kill him. He was successful, reportedly, in killing his former security chief. If you recall, last New Year's Eve, he was strangled.
How come people don't talk about this?
Here's the key thing. He is brilliant in playing the genocide card. What he says is that anybody who opposes him is a genocide denier, trying to deny that Tutsis were the victims of a genocide perpetrated by Hutus, which is actually a false narrative. One of the leaders of the opposition is facing a long sentence right now, is because Umuhoza is her name. She said that we need to be honest. Victims of the massacres in 1994 were both Hutu as well as Tutsi.
Yes.
And for that, she was convicted of being a genocide denier. So he plays that card very effectively.
That's very sad, actually, but we have to continue monitoring what's happening with the election in all these countries. And I'm very happy that SaharaTV was able to cover some of these stories as they were unfolding this year.
Frankly, we need more
coverage.
Outlets, not coverage, but we need more outlets like SaharaTV, because we can't expect SaharaTV to do the work of the entire continent. It's doing an excellent job. And we need more of this kind of journalism that exposes corruption in African countries. Angola, there was a report that $32 billion went missing.
I'm going to write that down.
Over a 3-year period.
Billion.
So, there's always the focus on Nigeria. No, there's a lot of other places we need to also focus on. Angola.
Thank
and
you
as you
so
know,
much.
$32 billion cannot be hidden in a mattress. So it means the outside world is also helping
part of it
in this theft.
That's why SaharaTV's logo is Everything Africa. We have to make sure that we do more of this. But I just want to thank you so much for all your support in the last 1 year of SaharaTV. And of course, we're coming back at the end of the fall. So thank you so much, Mr. Milton.
It's my pleasure. Always happy to be on your show.
All right, viewers, that has been the one and only Mr. Milton Allimadi, the publisher of Black Star News. Make sure that you check them out. Stay tuned. We have much more to come. We'll be right back.